Pentax's new 35mm camera, the $500 Pentax 17, has gone everywhere with me for the last month. And what sets it apart from other easy-to-use, sort of entry-level 35mm cameras is that this camera comes with a warranty. Which, if you know, it's actually a pretty big deal for a film camera, at least in 2024. The problem is, it also comes with the illusion of control. I'm Becca. This is my personal channel, so if you're not subscribed, it would mean the world to me if you were. Let's talk about the Pentax 17. The first illusion is focusing. On top of the lens, there are icons that equate to set distance ranges that you can focus to. The mountain is far, the flower is close, and when you look through the rangefinder style viewfinder, a small magnifying window shows you what icon you are set to, which is simply great analog design. But Pentax also chose to note the median distance for each zone under the lens, which I have spent far more time looking at than the pictorial images. And if you're decently good at judging distance, this all works well. The lens is surprisingly sharp for its size and weight, and the fall-off, it ain't no medium format, but it's there. Far more than you would get with something like Ilford Sprite or like Kodak H35, I think it's called, or like Double Film makes one of them. Basically reusable, disposable cameras, which are exactly what they sound like. The problem is, on the Pentax 17, zone focusing isn't active all the time. For example, if you're in full auto mode, the camera automatically sets its focus to a predefined distance that pretty much puts everything into focus, kind of like a disposable camera. And even though this camera has a sharper lens than those cameras, it's disappointing that you have no further control over it in a mode, like auto, that I think most folks will spend the most amount of time in, because this camera's controls are confusing.
Pro Image 100 by Kodak. I've never shot this before. I have no idea what to expect or what to shoot for, but you know what? Today is the day we learn. I think today is also the day that I finally learned what all of these things mean.
So when taking a photo, there's a few knobs you can usually literally turn to get a proper exposure. That's like your aperture, your shutter speed, and your ISO. So on the Pentax 17, you load your film, you set your ISO, and that control, for the most part, is locked. And then the aperture on the Pentax 17 is controlled by the shooting mode, which means that it's ultimately left up to the camera. And last but not least, you have your shutter speed, which can be set to fast, slow, or bulb via the shooting modes. And yes, there is an exposure compensation dial, which allows you to under or overexpose by up to 2 stops in either direction, or you can use the ISO dial if you know what you're doing to do sort of the same. And then there's no real way to understand what decisions the camera is making in real time, so you have to wait till you get a bunch of rolls of film back, and you have to remember what settings you were on to really start to learn the camera. Now there are 2 indicator lights. The orange light means that the flash is gonna go off, and then the blue light warns you of a problem, like there won't be enough light for a good exposure. If all of this sounds confusing, it's because it is. It's like so terribly confusing. And the times that I enjoyed this camera the most are when I just gave up control and I shot in full auto and I just had a good time with it. And you can trust it to take good shots when you do this. But for the most part, it's just a solid point-and-shoot camera. Which raises the question, why would anyone pay $500 for it? And there's 2, I think, good reasons. The first one is that you want Pentax to keep making film cameras, which, yes, I really want that. So you'd buy this one to support them making more. Okay. Number 2 is that you understand how amazing it would be to have a warranty on a film camera. I have so many broken film cameras, and it's because all of the parts in them are over 20 years old. So I kind of gave up on buying vintage point-and-shoot cameras. Instead, I started buying those reusable, disposable types that I talked about earlier. But even with those, you're lucky to get a year out of them before, I don't know, some part breaks because they're entirely made out of plastic, or the flash just stops working. So to have a film camera that can be sent back and repaired for up to 3 years is huge. It's also just better for the environment.
Got it.
But even with a warranty, $500 is expensive for a point-and-shoot camera. So what you can count on to save you money is the half-frame format. A half-frame camera only exposes half of a typical 35mm frame, so you get double the amount of photos per 35mm roll, and your camera will natively shoot in a vertical orientation. But this also means you're getting half of the resolution. For folks just posting to social media, or folks who aren't going to necessarily be printing or blowing images up, this shouldn't be a problem though. This was my first time shooting with a half frame camera, and to get 72 shots per roll, I mean, that's insane when you're used to only getting 36. I was far more loose about what I took photos of, and it feels kind of liberating. Of course, there are other half-frame cameras out there, just none that are as new and as like semi-premium feeling as this. Which brings me to my last point. The Pentax 17 sits in this really nice middle ground of not being, hold on. It's not as heavy as something like the Nikkormat FT or like a Canon AE1 that is like, I mean, that is full metal. You could literally kill somebody with this, I'm sure of it. But it's not nearly as plasticky and cheap feeling as the Ilford Sprite. That's rough. That's really rough. So that's the Pentax 17. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it, and I trusted it once I gave up on trying to make it more than it is. A very solid point-and-shoot camera. And if you want just that, without the worry of something breaking or the need to know really anything about aperture or f-stop or ISO, it can be yours for the not so low price of $500. I'm Becca. I appreciate you so much. I think you should be seeing more of me around here real soon. So stay tuned and subscribe for more of that. See you in the next one.